Don, what was it you were gonna ask Josh?
What?
What was it you were gonna ask Josh?
Oh, I was gonna ask you, what is the job description of the attendants that are
Yeah, it was pretty much
monitoring?
11 o'clock.
What are your expectations?
The expectations, we are
It was coming down pretty
revising
good.
them, and honestly,
Between
there are some that go by
and
far
East
above
Hall.
and beyond. Like, we have, it was the
Start to
individual that does toss and
Whatever
race. He
that
actually crawls in the back of their vehicle, helps
stretch
them
that the
unload.
landfill sits
But
on,
from a
literally
liability
you can watch
standpoint,
it go
I can't really
all the way
require
around you,
attendants to
Yeah.
crawl in
be
the back
on
of
the
people's
east
vehicles.
side of us and
But
just,
they're supposed to, A, make sure the sites
Yeah.
are
All that
clean.
methane.
They're supposed to direct
Yeah.
people to whatever can.
No,
If
and we
they-
don't produce
If they
any.
haven't already pulled up,
but
and then they're
yeah,
supposed to
it's
assess
just
the
weird. You
fees
can
for anything that's
watch it coming from
non-MSD.
the south,
And
southwest,
we're
and
live,
then
by the
all of
way,
a sudden it
we're
just
live now.
splits
Oh,
and goes
Ready to
around
go?
us, and then
After
once in a
I get-
while,
I'll-
we'll get some.
Be the place to build a house.
ready? Okay,
Ready?
call the meeting to order. So this is our work meeting again for the options on the solid waste program. Is there any public comment out there or any?
Nothing right now?
Okay, so we'll get right into it. So I set up my computer if we want to try different things. So last time we figured option 2 and option 5 are what we were going to shoot for, but and I think we could also go back to option 1 and revise that. But I think, and from what I've been looking at, option 5 is pretty close to option 1, if we can make it that way. So I sent you guys some revised stuff, and then I did some more working on it too. Anybody got any questions or anything on so far, or any comments?
I mean, I personally, option 1, that we're gonna go backwards. I mean, that shouldn't even be an option to open it back up 24 hours. It's like Broadwater County doesn't have that many residents in it, and to cater to the few that we do have for 24 hours, that's ridiculous. I mean, other counties aren't even open 24 hours, and I think 5 is better, limited, to so many hours, but to just open it back up. Nobody needs to go in and dump their garbage at 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, or at 11, 12. There can be certain times that it can be set and they can dump. And if they can't, the Cedar Street site is open and they can bring their garbage there. But to be totally open all the time, that's ridiculous.
Okay. Option 5 would be probably the next best one. And it would be basically unmanned sites and open 7 to 7. Some of the issues that I thought that it would be hard for somebody to come from Townsend and go around all the sites and open them up at the same time. And so I did run into Sam Good. He lives just above Dry Gulch. Asked him if he would be willing to go down there and open it up and close up the sites, and he seemed to be willing to do that. So, and then Dawn mentioned that she could maybe work on the Winston site most of the time and open them up or close them up. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I don't know if you're thinking of all the time or if you ever need it, but I live right next door. And
Did you say somebody was around Winston also, Josh?
We do have a fill-in employee that he just fills in for us, but he lives in the Winston area there.
Okay. If that was the case, what were you thinking? I was thinking $10 a day to open and close, or would that be not enough? Or
I imagine it would have to be an hourly wage, and then however many, depends on which sites they're doing, and as long as you could have it still be a part-time position, as long as you didn't obviously exceed the, I think it's 32 hour mark. But You wouldn't have to have them all 7 to 7. You could stagger them like 7 to 7 at Raidersburg, 7:30 to 7:30 at Toston, where one employee could swing through and hit those ends. We have an employee that already handles the South District. So if you were to go with that option, that could be Winston, Dry Gulch are a little bit different. But you could also stagger it like 6:30 to 6:30 at Dry Gulch and have the individual who opens Cedar Street be able to get Dry Gulch as well. You're talking 2 cans and a gate, and then the drive time to come back from there.
So you'd have to open up the cans. Would they wouldn't have to be opened up, would they, the cans themselves, if the gates are closed and then?
The gates are closed right now with the lids closed and people still get in them, so if you left the gate.
But that's because we have the walk-in. If
Right.
we were to have the 7 to 7 every day, you should be able to do it with walk-in.
It's pretty easy to hop those little gates.
But, I mean, at that point, is that really our problem?
Not if we can get enforcement to happen on it. Like I said, we issued one citation for the ordinance and it was knocked down to a $20 fee for a fine, so we're not really getting a ton of support.
Well, but if somebody hops the fence, that's more than just digging through the trash. I mean, isn't that breaking in? I mean, not breaking, but that's trespassing.
You would think so.
So, you were gonna say something, Don?
Oh, are you thinking the same, like 2 8-hour shifts that are staggered amongst your employees, or what are you thinking how to?
With this, you could leave it as part-time. An individual goes down, and I still believe that lowering the lids, it'll help keep some trash from blowing out in the wind as well. So if you lower the lids, they gotta open and close, or open the gate, open the lids in the morning. They can hit multiple sites, run through, and then at night, somebody would go through, lower the lids and close them down. And then it depends on if you wanted to leave Cedar Street manned or unmanned. If it was unmanned at Cedar Street, then that person could rove with because for the 3 days that it's going to be not open, if you go with 4 days instead of 7 days, whatever days that they're not open, right now they have access through the walking gate and they still pull up and dump all the stuff on the ground. So you have to have somebody to go around and ensure the sites remain clean. Every day this week so far, Winston's had a substantial amount of trash outside the gate. And not just large objects, tires, bags of trash just sitting outside the man gate. So that would have to also be a part of the activity, would be to kind of clean up as they go.
But if we implement cameras at every position,
You'd be able to help catch and
Right.
as you go, you would be able to knock down on that. But we have cameras now and we're still talking to people and still writing citations, and it hasn't curbed at all. The ones that are going to do wrong are going to do wrong regardless of whether there's a camera there or not. And the Winston side is by far the worst. The rest of the sites, for the most part, the only time I ever see anything outside the gate is when it's a large item, that it'd be very difficult, or it's like a water heater that's a third full of water on a Tuesday when the site doesn't open up again until Friday or Thursday or Friday. I understand that.
So are you able to see who's leaving them? Is it?
Most of the time, when I put my game cameras out, I'll have a side profile of a vehicle, because I've been more concerned with catching people trying to get in and out of the can to keep us from having somebody fall in a can or getting cut in a can. So I do have, at Winston, I put up a camera out, and I was hoping to be able to get license plates, but to get a shot of a license plate on a moving vehicle is not the easiest thing, especially in the winter and lower light conditions. I can clearly see the vehicle, but there's a lot of 20-some Dodges out there.
but these newer cameras would be better, wouldn't they?
They would.
Better technology. So, the cameras that you have, do they date stamp when the?
Time and date stamp, yeah.
So is most of that activity before 7 or after 7
I
or?
have, honestly, at Winston, there's a recurring person that would come in there at 1:30 to 2 o'clock in the morning about every other day. They were in the walk-in gate at that time, all the time. The only thing I can think of is they worked a swing shift in Helena and they were on their way back or they were heading in. But it was about every other day they were hitting there. But it's a vehicle that comes pretty regularly through.
Do they dispose of their garbage properly?
They were taking it through the gate.
Okay.
So if we did away with the man gates and just opened them up from 7 to 7 or 6:30 to 6:30 or 7?
That would be the vast majority of the traffic would be through then.
Okay, so we would just have to deal with one or two vehicles, you think, or?
Yeah, at the Winston side is mostly where I've had the camera out, just because we've had quite a bit of inappropriate dumping. And that would be just a small percentage of people there, 1 or 2. It would be the exception and not the rule by far.
Okay.
My concern would be actually getting the gates closed, specifically in the summertime when there's hunting, fishing, picnic fair time, and he's got to get there because somebody says he's got to be there, and the thing stays open all night. That remote area, who's going to look at that on that camera?
When a lot of these cameras will send updates, like with the one to address your concern, like we're looking at some cameras that mount inside the dumpster, and they scan every item that goes into the can, and they'll send an update. You can set hours of parameter, like for, if anything's dumped after 7 p.m., it'll send a notification, and that's to help ensure that people aren't crawling in the can and it's time and date stamped, so we would know, because we'd get a notification if somebody was dumping in the can at 8 o'clock at night on rodeo weekend. They either climbed the fence or something.
I could live with that. Unmanned sites at 3 in the afternoon and 3 roofs going in. How do we control that?
Well, I missed part of that, sorry.
3 roofs going into the container.
3 roofs?
Yeah.
That is what and I've seen I've gotten a lot of feedback. We need to have better hours of operation at the transfer station. That's 90% of the reason why people dump at the outlying sites or at Cedar Street is because we're open 8 to 2 and then Saturday 2 to 10 only.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of these. If we do go with one of these accommodations that has a larger revenue boost to us, we need to be able to offer Sunday at the transfer station at a minimum, because that's, especially from daylight savings to daylight savings during the busy season.
Yeah.
And the vast majority of people will do the right thing if the option's out there. The majority of people will.
You're right.
You're never going to stop the people, the one-offs, if they're just trying to get away with crap. They'll find a way to do something. But right now, we don't offer hours at the transfer station that are conducive to a normal business day. Like Mr. Delger's roofing crew, are you typically ever done with your roof between 8 to 2? I mean, typically you work all the way through your work day,
Exactly.
and at the tail end you're cleaning up. Well, now you have to either sit on that trash for a full day and try and bring it the next day, or your contractor gets stuck like that. So if we shifted our hours like 10 to 6 instead of 8 to 2, the hook truck driver and the transfer station driver can still work whatever hours they need to do, but our attendant that's there, there's nothing saying that they can't work their shift, stagger their hours later in the day. And then that allows
If they're
us-
willing to do that.
if they're willing to do that.
They're employees.
But if we're making modifications to the program, we should try to make them as many meaningful changes as we can. I mean, if that's the whole intent of all of this, is to provide a better service to all of our constituents.
So I got that email, I think I sent it out to you guys, from Jeff Schritz, and he suggested maybe giving most of them a permit and maybe to get through the gate up there. But they wouldn't, you'd have to make sure that they weigh, I suppose.
Well, we lose all control of that, and there's no way for them to dump in the building, so then they'd be dumping construction debris outside on the ground. And with it as windy as it is up there most days, anything that's not shingles, if there's
It's gone.
insulation or plastic or anything else, it would be all over the county. And then, once again, the more combinations you give out, the less, you know, then there's nothing to say that they're not gonna tell somebody else or hand it to somebody else, and then
Right.
you start to lose a little bit of control. And where that building up there, that building works well if you can back in, dump all your stuff right on the ground, or right on the inside of the bay. It can be sorted with the excavator, it can be loaded right there. I think if we start trying, because we wouldn't be able to leave the building open and unlocked for them to back in and then to dump, and we'd be kind of asking for a world of trouble there, I think. And to just dump it out on the ground outside, I don't believe that would be a choice in our best interest. I think we would end up with debris scattered all the way over, it'd be everywhere, it'd be in the range, and it'd be up at the lime plant, and we'd have a heck of a mess.
So we don't separate C&D from household goods, and, because we pay less for C&D at the landfill.
The only separation we do is really up there is we pull the metal, we pull the tires, we pull the mattresses, and then any obvious big sticks, branches, burnables, they get peeled out of there as well.
So for a load of, somebody's bringing in shingles, you pay full household price.
We end up, that all's going in the can right now. We don't have the room or the area really right now, and our building's not set up to store X amount in a separate spot. That's someday if we get a new transfer station built with a little better setup and a little bit bigger room to work, then that may be possible.
So we would have to have somebody up there all the time, and you were gonna move Tanya down here, right?
That's not gonna end up happening right now. While she's still, when I talked about that moving, I kind of have, I'm never gonna be able to find another admin that can run an excavator or a loader and do books. That's the unique skill set that she alone possesses. If she ever moves on from the county, then most likely the next individual I get won't be able to run the loader up there, and I would have to have an attendant up there, and then that position would end up most likely coming back and then be able to really truly do an admin's job, because she's mostly a solid waste attendant / equipment operator for the vast majority of her day. And for the 1 hour that the gates are closed, that they're still on, that's when she does our invoicing and billing. But for the most part, she fills an attendant operator role right now. But like I said, to find a bookkeeper who can run an excavator is
Ain't gonna happen.
pretty difficult to find that again.
Because I had stuck her in here at savings of 50% off of her current wages, and that would go away if you kept her. She'd still be at 40% of solid waste. And so I've still got Doug Massey in here as a full-time. So if I took her out, and I had kept, well, I put one part-time in here at about 0.64, because I figured that it wouldn't be a part-time guy. We would have just somebody at each site that would come in and open up and close up, and I figured,
The wage would add up to about the same as one.
yeah, and so I could put them in as full part-time. So I used the guy, Gerald Salway, that had the least amount, which is about 15,000. So if you did that, that would drop that first line of fiscal year 2022 from 72,000 to 41,000. So it'd be quite a drop there. So then it would take 3.6 years to pay it off instead of 2.5. Unless, and if you add anything else in there. Would you need another part-time guy? So all I've got in here is just Doug Massey, full-time at CBU, Tanya Hudson, Steve Cordova, Kelly Swanton, Doug Massey, and another part-time person.
You'll have at least one part-time filling in at Cedar Street for the weekend hours, if you want to man Cedar Street the whole time, so that'll eat up one. And then if you're figuring the other part-time position is to cover the opening and closing of the gates, then you would have two part-time and then one full-time, and then Tanya and then our 2 drivers.
So we'll take another part-time out of there. So now you're down to $7,500 on fiscal year 2022, and it's going to take you 6.5 years to pay it off. So we need to do something different.
Power's expensive.
It is if you look at our budget, it's nearly half of our budgetary expense right now is in manpower wages.
And it appears that the only, by adding manpower, or the more manpower expense that we have, the less service we give. The more service we give, the less expense that we have.
Well then, like I said,
I have a hard time looking at any other option on here. Just if you look at the current deficit years back to the black, option 1.5 years. The rest of them are significantly more than that. The more service we give, the less it costs. The less service we give, the more it costs. I don't see how we can even make an argument that we should be giving less service and hiring more people. It just doesn't make sense in my mind.
Don't disagree.
So now option 5 is our least desirable option.
let's see, with option 5, walk me through the manpower that you have there again. I
Okay.
just want to make sure we're on the same.
So I'll give you the people that are there. So you're there, Tanya Hudson, Steve Cordova, Kelly Swanton, Doug Massey, and one part-time guy at $17,000, 16, whether it be Ellis Nelson or William Baker, and then Gerald Salway type person at $15,000.
Just the opening, the rest of the site.
Yeah. So the way I had it figured before, where it came up to 72,000, I had Tanya Hudson at 0.5 because you said you were maybe going to move her down here and put her at, I don't know, just very part-time. And then I think I had still had Doug Massey in there, and then no other part-time people other than just people opening up the can, if you could get people to do that. Everybody's calling me. So, and I can pass my computer around if you want to see it.
So I guess, do we have any other questions for option 5, or is that pretty much hashed
Were you
out?
still thinking on option 5 of the outlying sites open 7 days a week? I know at one time
I had limited
last
hours. If
meeting
you would help to have them at maybe 5 days a week, I would guess, if that would work for people,
About Tuesday or Thursday or something like that.
something I suppose, yeah. Weekends generally tend to be the busiest, don't they?
Yeah,
Most
and that's, like right now, in the south end, they've got, between Towson and Raidersburg, they have Thursday through Saturday. And that's, you know, excluding Dry Gulch, which doesn't have the highest population density. Between Towson and Raidersburg, they see quite a bit of traffic. And I rarely get any complaints from the south side of the district, having it be 4 days a week down there. So that's part of why I was asking if it was better hours for 4 days a week for the 4 outreach cans. That's giving them twice as many, or twice as much time that it's open, or twice as many days and better hours, twice as many hours per day that it's open, because right now they're open 9 to 3. So they only get 6 hours. If you went 4 days a week, you got twice as many days and twice as many hours in each day. And then that would cut down on the manpower expense on that as well.
And that's also removing the man gates too. Getting rid of the man gates, so then you can get more canisters.
In any of these options where they're unmanned, having in hours of operation, the finder, it does not make sense to have the walk-in gate there if we're going to leave it unmanned and open for hours of operation. It would slim down on the amount of work that the hook truck driver is going to have to do. It decreases the amount of cans that they have to pick up by a third. That'll help account for the additional solid waste that you're going to see in the 40-yard cans when you open it up. If we're having to do walk-ins and 40s at higher traffic, they're going to get pretty well overwhelmed pretty quick.
Yeah, we can't do that. It also makes a difference. I put the tonnage, increase in tonnage on the option 5 at 20%. If you raised it to 30%, everything comes out negative pretty much.
I didn't get the cost back from the accountants yet for what it costs for the hang tags to go on every year. And then last year, we didn't have to order more of the hang tags because they ordered about twice as many as they needed the first year. But it was, just for the stickers alone, we had to order it in 2 batches. And it was almost $800 just for the stickers with the new date and the window decals. And then the toner expense and envelopes and paper I think it was $1,200 for that. And then at 50 cents a stamp for postage, you send out 4,000 to 5,000 of those hang tag letters out. You're 2,000 to 2,500 just in postage. So you can add another 4,000 to 5,000 on for all of these options, because we wouldn't be sending those out anymore.
And all these options, I took the hang tags out, so I took $4,000 out of that one. If you add the hang tags back into option 5,
yeah, you're way in there.
yeah, you're way in the.
So it would appear that because of the required manpower, that option 5 is not financially feasible. Would everybody agree on that?
As presented, yes.
Yes, but I'm thinking of what you said last week about our goals. And maybe our goals, maybe Josh's goals are not as much, I mean, what's your priority? To
They
have
are,
better,
we do have to reduce our spend, but there's also, when I've read back through all the initial pitch, and a lot of it is when it was completely open and unmanned, the employees are having to physically sort through garbage out there, and that does present a health hazard to our employees, which they did it forever, I get that. But there is a lot more labor when it gets to the shop, so it's got to be a balance between that, the safety and the welfare of the workforce, and we have to reduce our spend. So that's where, what I was saying, there's got to be a compromise in there where we can reduce our spend enough to where we can make our, I mean, we're supposed to be a for-profit, we're an enterprise fund, and we had, for years it wasn't. So we know that not only do we have to find a sustainable business or model, but we have to be able to dig ourselves out of the hole. And we don't want increased risk to the employees, and we can't have somebody falling in the can.
So with the because we have the walk-in gates, has that really, how much have we reduced the workload on the transfer station employees?
Some, because the large stuff gets thrown on the ground outside, and then I pick it up with a trailer every
Well,
morning, and then
that's-
I haul it somewhere to put it in
But
an
that's a
appropriate
health
place.
hazard for you though, so that's, it
It
doesn't
is.
sound like we've gained a whole lot with the current,
Mhm.
which obviously we're trying to change that, so.
And one of the things that I read through is, you know, to help with sorting is that was part of what the attendants were supposed to be doing. Give guidance to let them know that the metal goes in the metal can, and the trees and branches go in the trees and branch can, and the grass goes in the grass can. Well, I've filled in as the attendant enough to know that 98% of the people will just pull up and go right to the right spot. Because they know where it goes. The person who has one painted board or one non-painted, non-stained board with all the rest of their household trash, they're gonna back up to the regular dumpster and they're gonna look left, look right, and they're gonna throw it in. Now, at that point, is the extra manpower worth the one-offs?
Absolutely not.
And how effective have they been? Heard the one at Winston, he just sits in his vehicle until his wife comes around, and then he helps her.
That was the one before this one, John.
Oh, okay.
I
So,
don't think it's the same guy unless the game.
but it is, you know, like you say, you might have one or two good
I think if
monitor.
all of my monitors have the same work practices as the ones that we have, the one we have in Tossin and Raidersburg, and the one I have in Dry Gulch is very good as well. I think if all of them were, we would have by far less public pushback. But once again, I can't ask somebody to crawl on the back of a truck when it's snow and slick, is if they slip, which is a realistic, outcome, and get hurt, then the county's at fault because we've asked them to crawl in and out of a vehicle 100 times a day.
So we have the liability concern, and we have our profit loss concern. Maybe we should try and separate those two a little bit. We don't want people falling into can. Is having the site manned, is that going to keep somebody from falling into can?
It's kept, I will say, I grew up here, and from what I used to see when you pulled up at Cedar Street, because that's the one my family used the most, dumpster diving was frequent and regular during the day. It is not frequent and regular during the day now because there's people there.
Yeah.
Now it's a handful of people that go. It's basically, I've got 3 groups of people that go somewhere between 12 to 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's the same group of 3 people.
I guess
Groups of people.
dumpster diving is, no, that's not necessarily falling into a can, that's voluntarily jumping into a can. But, so if there's a concern of falling into a can, why don't we, regardless of what we do, we need to have a discussion of maybe we need handrails, guardrails of some sort.
And I think, once again, that's why I was a proponent for shutting the lids at night, and we need to lock the lids. As much as it's a pain, if we put it down and we lock it, if they crawl through the torn openings in the can, that's a whole different, that's more of a willful act than if it's left open and they can easily crawl in.
So has anybody actually talked to Corey about what our liability is?
That would be a question for the commissioners.
Whatever somebody wants to sue us for.
But Montana has that law, it's called, it's inherent dangers out there. If you're doing anything outside, unless you're grossly negligent, you're not liable for things to happen. But
And that's where I was saying, if we have cameras to monitor, we have ordinance in place, and as long as we're not leaving the door wide open for them to willfully crawl in, then we're not willfully negligent. We're not inviting that.
But there, we have all this talk about liability, but none of us here are attorneys. None of us know what our liability is. None of us know what is going to help that. We don't have the experience. We haven't researched the court cases. Maybe before we discuss any more about liability, we need to get our county attorney's 2 cents.
as I heard there was somebody fell in even when there was a tenant around.
I'm not sure if they did it was before I got hired on.
I know Tina Holman, she told me it was an attendant up there and some person fell in, they had to help them get back out again, and they were up there, so.
Well, we all know if there's a little bit of dew or rain or snow on the steel in front of them, it's a slip and slide.
I think
Don't get on the steel.
Well, it's been talked about before, we put the concrete parking curbs up to where they can only back up X amount, and in that way, you know, if they willfully climb up on that to throw it away, then once again, that's a knowing act. You crawled up on there.
Well, I guess, in my opinion, that's something that regardless of what we want to do here, I think that's something we should look into and implement in the near future.
Well, once again, like, I got to go to Lewis and Clark's, solid or transfer station there. They've got a much higher Jersey wall that and ours are lower to make it easier for people to throw trash over, but where they back up, it's quite a bit taller than what we have. And Winston's site is lower than Cedar Street side. You know, they definitely should be higher if we're going, you know, as we go forward. If that's our concern and that's what we're working for, and especially if they're unmanned, then we ought to make it a little more difficult to accidentally fall in.
So then we would be doing our due diligence if we put that stuff up there, then we shouldn't be liable for anything if people fell in, I would think.
I don't know.
That's a great
That's a question for
Corey or Jamie.
Yeah.
See, and I take and work up at Marysville, and I'm gonna do it this Saturday. But we have 2 cans up there to throw your garbage in. We open one up on Saturday and then one up on Sunday, depending on the people. And then we have a metal can up there, and the metal can is close to the hut, so that you know that people are just throwing metal because they like to throw everything but metal in there. And we have the railings up, but we got like those concrete blocks that are this big, and in the middle of them is where the gate thing, the railing is bolted onto. Plus you have that much in the concrete thing that they can only back up to. And then we do have it on both cans where if they have something big, they can open the gate up and then get back a little farther to dump in. Otherwise, that's there. We've never had anybody fall in, and we've never had a whole pile of waste that we've had to pick up too because they can't reach over and dump. And we, you know, when I'm there, they drive up to the hut so that I can see their hang tag and write their number down, and then I write down if they've got a short box pickup full of garbage, then I just mark short box. If they've got 3 garbage bags, I do that. If they've got a burn barrel with garbage in it or a garbage can, I mark that down. And then somebody guesstimated how much all this weighs, and generally you're within 4 to 10 pounds for the weekend, you know, that you might have put more or less, but you're that close with your numbers. But there's no issues, and it's like those people up there asked to have that service. They bought the roll-off truck and the roll-off boxes, and they're paying for the person being up there at the site. They have 2 options. They can either dump Saturday or Sunday 8 to 3, or they can bring it into the transfer station. So they have 2 options. And we're looking at times closing that down just because of the costs. And they would rather pay more for their yearly garbage fee than they would to have that place closed. So Marysville Solid Waste District type thing, if you want to call it, they pay more than what the scratch gravel residents pay for the garbage, but they like that they have their own site and they can use it, but they can also go to the transfer station. I mean, when you look at it, it's the same here. The rural sites, they can come to Cedar Street. Besides going to the rural sites, they have 2 options, just like what Marysville has. But it's, you know, we cater as far as, you know, they want it opened up there, and you mess with their garbage, you know, they get a little wild up there. But otherwise, everything is, they have 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, 8 to 3. And, you know, I can count 3 times maybe in the 11 years that I've been there that I've had garbage outside the gate, or we don't have it all fenced in. We have chicken wire type fence, L-shaped, so that the dominating wind is from the west, so that it doesn't blow the garbage into the neighbor's property. Otherwise, we have a gate, but you can walk around the gate, but we don't, you know, we don't have illegals coming in. And we're right next to the road that goes up to the ski resort, and we don't have people coming in and illegal dumping or anything like that. So what's hard for me to grasp is that they can do it up there, and they've done it for years, and why is it that the residents in Broadwater County can't grasp anything, and that they have to have their garbage 24 hours a day? And it's like, I just don't get that. And then all the scavenging, I mean, you know, if they're relying on other people to throw stuff away so that they can grab something to go make money, why are we funding that? Why can't they go out and get another job or something? I mean, there's so many weird things that happen in this county that don't happen elsewhere, but it just seems like we got to cater to such a small amount of people. And
I don't, well, at least in my opinion, it's not as much what we're catering to as just the fact that the more service we provide, the cheaper it is for us. So why wouldn't we give the most service for the least cost?
then it will be abused by other counties coming in and dumping.
But it's still cheaper for us. It costs us money to shut that down.
There were multiple reasons that we ended up in the hole, though, but that's one thing you gotta remember, the old way did end up getting us in the hole.
Agreed.
And there's multiple reasons for that, and there was some equipment purchases that probably didn't work out to our best benefit. So there's a variety of things, but that's one important thing to remember when we think about option one, is they went to this in large part because option one wasn't working. And most of it was the assessment hadn't been raised in 14 years. We saw substantial growth. And I truly don't believe we have, I believe some we have out of county dumping. I do believe that is some of it, but I don't believe it was as rampant of a problem as what was anticipated. Because if it was as big as it was anticipated, we would have saw a much steeper drop in our tipping fees. And so I think what we didn't factor in was how much this county's truly grown. And we were still charging the same amount for back when there was significantly fewer people, and the cost of doing business has gone quite a bit. They've gone up quite a bit. I mean, you look at a lot of those fees, a lot of those years were when there was diesel was at $4.60 a gallon, and the assessment wasn't raised then. And so there's a lot of reasons that led up to it, but that is one thing to really remember. I mean, option one seems like on paper like it will be a substantial gain, but that's also the option that got us here in the first place.
It is, but I mean, obviously the option that was implemented is losing us. Well, we're still not getting out of the hole, and we're getting a lot more from the tax base as well. Yeah. So
it was.
That's not the answer.
The current way of doing business was profitable for the first time in a long time. They did generate a positive revenue
because of the increased taxes. Because of
the increase to the assessment. If we hadn't been substantially in the hole, this would be a successful business model for the county. Like, it would work. We would be able to put enough to CIP to where we could grow our CIP, we could cover maintenance expenses, we could cover infrastructure upgrades slowly. But unfortunately, that's not the position we're in right now. We have quite a bit of debt to deal with, and we're not generating enough revenue here to pay off the debt and to handle our failing infrastructure and our old tired vehicles and all the rest. That's why that's why I say that we need to find that balance, where we can give some more, but not discard some of the gains that we've made on, I mean, I can tell you for certain, our sites are cleaner than they ever were. Yeah, I remember going down to Cedar Street when I was a kid, and there was one wire fence around it, and there was trash everywhere, and it was kind of a nightmare. So they are cleaner than it ever was, and we're generating quite a bit more on our scrap metal. I mean, we're already about a third of what we sold back again, and we just sold in July of last year. So the little bit of sorting at the sorting we do at Cedar Street and Winston is of benefit quite a bit. So that's, I guess, I'm personally not wholly in favor of going all the way back to the way it was, just for no other reason than that business model is what got us in the hole to start with. We do have a higher assessment now, and that's where you see these positive gains, is mostly because the raise in assessment was eaten up by manpower. There's got to be a way to do this with fewer people and better hours. That's an easy accommodation, because if we go all the way back to zero and we don't get it right this first time, we aren't going to be able to restrict it in any way, shape, or form for like the next 20 years, or they'll have us hung from the light posts out here on Main Street.
It appears to me that the happy medium doesn't seem to work. It looks like we either need to go all or nothing. We either need to go, it's wide open the way it was and cut our costs to the bone, or we need to close it all down, say the heck with these outer sites. We have Cedar Street, we have the transfer station. Cedar Street is open for normal hours, it's manned 100% of the times, and that is, you know, we don't worry about the outside sites.
One of the things that I was wondering on option 5 and a lot of these options, it says manning Cedar Street all the time. Do we see the value in manning Cedar Street all the time if we're not manning the outreach sites 24
I
hours a
think
day?
I
Cedar
agree with
Street's
that.
less important.
What's that?
I think like Cedar Street's probably less important than some of like Winston.
Well, and that's where I think a lot of those additional part-time positions you have in there, if we used our one full-time position as a rover that could work on opening and closing a lot of these sites, and they can work the cleanup, and they can pack the cans at Cedar Street, and if you have somebody that's going to be showing up, you have the hook truck driver that's going to be there, you have the rover that's going to be there, that would cut down on quite a bit of the expense. And I don't believe it's increasing our risk profile dramatically, because as you guys have all said, some sites, the people never leave the shed. Like, they go and do their cleanup right at the beginning, and then most people in the county know what they're supposed to do, so they go and they're doing the right thing, and the person just is sitting there watching them do the right thing. So I think that if we utilize that full-time position to handle a lot of what those part-times, that would cut the cost, or cut some of the cost and the manpower associated with it as well. At least you'd have 8 hours out of a 12-hour day that they could float through all of them.
So what are you proposing then?
With option 5, it would be just hours of operation for all 5 of the canister sites. And then having our full-time position be the one they can work to hit. We could stagger the hours between Cedar, Winston, and Dry Gulch. You have one person for the tail end of the county, and then the full-time position roams around.
So we would still need 1 full-time and 2 part-times?
I don't think you would need the second part-time, because if you staggered those, if you only had the 4 outreach at 4 days a week,
Yep.
and you staggered the hours of the full-time, you could be able to do that with 1 of each. You would still have to have, it's the kind of the kicker in is you have to have somebody to close the sites down.
Yep.
But and that's where any of these opening hours of operation, where that second part comes in, but I don't think it'll be, I don't believe it would be even near the one lowest part-time position you have. It doesn't take that long to open a gate and to raise lids.
Because I guess maybe this isn't the case, but it seems like option 5, we're gonna option 5, we're gonna lose any benefits that we have. Option 5 is going to have every disadvantage that option 1 has,
You know, and
as far as
I
illegal
don't
dumping or dumpster diving.
I don't see that. I don't understand the numbers on option 5 right now, because at any point in time on the weekend, we have 3 part-time workers working.
Yep.
You got 4 part-time. You got Winston, Dry Gulch, Cedar Street, and Tossin Raidersburg. So that's 4 part-time workers, and there's no way that you're not gaining if you go to even 2.
Correct, but if the sites are open and not manned at any time, we're gonna have increased dumping that equals what having it open 24/7
But
is.
he already has that factored in there.
Agreed.
Into these numbers.
Right, but so the only difference as far as, from a cost standpoint between option 1 and option 5 is we just have more manpower in option 5. We're not saving any tipping fees.
Not on the tipping fees. None of these options are going to give us a savings on tipping fees. There's not a single option on this
Well, like
piece of paper is going to give us.
Keyed Gates would.
I don't believe that.
You don't think so?
No.
That would keep the
It would
contractors
be
out.
because contractors are going to have a key or a pin pad too, because they all have houses here as well. And I don't believe the out of county dumping is in our walk-in counts is accounting for a dramatic portion of our tipping fees. So I think even with keyed access, I still think you're going to be right about where you're at.
Well, let me,
Minimal difference.
okay, so I've got it in here, so you got 1 full-time and 2 part-times. 1 part-time is, well, they're both about, let's see. No, I just got 1 part-time in here. So you wanted 2 part-times, you said? Right?
You would have to have, somebody's going to have to work the weekend hours. You'd have to have 1 for Monday through Friday and somebody to handle the weekend.
Okay.
And then I'm perfect. I start my day early. I'm more than capable of opening a gate. I drive to at least 2 of these every single work day just to pick up stuff off the ground so our sites don't look terrible.
Okay.
So there's nothing saying that I couldn't assist and hit those as well.
Okay, so I've got 2 part-times and employed and 1 full-time. So let me just run through, if you had 0% increase in tonnage, that would give you $85,000 on fiscal year 2022. So I'll just give you those figures. So it'd be $85,653. If you added 10% in their increase, it would be $44,106. If you went to 20%, you'd be down to $25,559. If you went to 30%, you'd be a minus $39,000.
Well,
So that increase in tonnage makes a big
I
difference.
agree with Dawn though. I mean, the places that we ever had the worst illegal dumping with, especially from contractors, wasn't Cedar Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was Tossin, Raidersburg,
Yeah,
Triangles.
it's all that.
It's those it's the dark corners out there. People don't typically do things that might be in a gray area in a place where lots of people could be at any point in time.
And you have lights there.
If you're gonna do stuff that might be in that gray area, you're gonna go where there's least chance of being observed.
So right, that's where my comment comes from, that if we actually want to solve some of these problems, we need to do away with all the outlying areas, have Cedar Street manned whenever it is open, and then those problems go away.
That was an option that was proposed, to my understanding, when they first went through that, and the public.
I don't think we should do that, but I'm saying if we want to solve the problems, that is the only option that I see to actually solve the problems we're talking about.
That's exactly what the solution is.
Yeah.
Shut them all down, you only have open
Cedar Street and transfer station, yep. I'm not in favor of that, or what does the commission think about something like that?
It was an option that was considered the last time, from what I
Yeah.
can see, and it was the amount of public opinion weighed in heavily that.
Yeah, Tossin, Raidersburg,
Right.
hit the fan.
We tried to just consolidate Raidersburg and Tossin, and that was a big,
But that's,
Yes.
right, so if we wanna solve the problem, that is basically our only option. If we don't like that option because we wanna increase service to the public, then let's increase service to the public and cut our costs to a minimum.
So one of the things that you haven't asked is, you know, when you talk hours of operation and opening and closing, I don't know, a option to consider is open it up Thursday, close it Monday. It's open those 4 days, and then you're only looking at opening and closing 2 days a week.
What would be the
that's-
benefit to that? Mainly hook truck drivers?
That would be cost, you know, reduced manpower. You're only working to open and close it 2 days a week instead of opening and closing it.
so it's
4 days
open
a week.
24 hours during those periods, Thursday through Saturday.
So
or
what-
something.
You would see the higher increase in tonnage at that point, if there was a large scale dumping from outside or contractor abuse, that would offer the largest likelihood of that. But if you had that rover, or that full-time position worked whatever days that they were fully open to where they could go out and help clean up and do site inspections and pack cans and close lids that need to be closed because the can's full. If there was somebody that was roaming through there, that is another way of accomplishing the same thing.
But then you're back to your liability issue, that's why the commissioners didn't want the option one, is because it was open 24 hours.
Well, if you were gonna do that and have them open 24, you just have to put concrete barriers in front of them so people can't back right up to the can.
Which, it sounds to me, like, as I've said, I think we should do that regardless, and that just makes sense to me.
Part of our issue at Cedar Street with the wing wall tipping is people have backed up, their hitches bump up against the wall, repeated contact with the east wall is starting to
Yeah, not much,
undermine
yeah, a little-
structural integrity. A concrete parking curb 20 years ago would have been much cheaper than the
Yeah.
repair bill. We're gonna look for that.
And I looked at that today, it looks like it's only out about 5 or 6 inches at the worst spot.
It is,
Uh,
but it's leaning enough that the concrete pad the cans are sitting on, the wall's tipping hard enough, it's kicking the backside of the concrete pad the 40s are sitting on. It's not terrible yet, but
I don't think that it's hitting the concrete pads down there. The most of the problem with those is where the cans sit down, those are getting pounded down in the ground. And those could be easily remedied by putting a sonotube or something in there, but I don't, you think they're connected? The base is connected to the wall?
no, I don't believe so. I think the wall's just leaning on that one end, and that's causing the far side of that pad to kick up.
It looks like it's actually going down towards the wall.
It's nosing down towards the wall and kicking up the far end. You could, where the yard cans sit on the outside, it's raised about an inch now.
But
just
most of
from
them are
last year.
cracked up so bad you can't really tell.
Mhm, exactly. But, yeah, it's kind of digressing. I just, that's another way to spin that option. And if we're looking to reduce cost a little bit, and you would,
I guess, the only advantage I could see to that over just being open 24/7 is it might.
it forces volume to come to the one place that it's easier
Right, it
and more
definitely
efficient
helps
for
your-
us to go to.
Yeah, it definitely helps your hook truck out.
That would be, you would have some of the same benefit. We're not making multiple trips,
And
full
it's-
40s.
So is that something, if we were to stagger all of the sites like that, is that something that just you could take care of opening and closing those?
I don't work
Twice a
late
week.
enough at night to close it,
Oh,
but,
so
well,
he's,
if you close it, it would be, if you opened on the outreaches on a Thursday and you closed them, you know, Monday morning, and then it was closed from Monday to Thursday, and that would cover the weekend. That's something that the full-time, we could handle with the staff, with the full-time staff. we
without
have.
having to have a part-time.
Or the hook truck driver that goes out to pick
Yeah.
up a can could open the gate and close it. So there's,
Yeah.
there's multiple options to make something like that work.
That makes sense, that makes better sense to me. If we can do it without hiring anybody else, and
It would still give us, the one full-time would be able to assist. Monday's very busy, and that's when they're dealing with the bulk of the flow from the weekends. It still allows that full-time position to help out at the transfer station if needed, but they would be in more of a rover position at that point, would be able to, like I said, that anytime you close that gate to them, there's going to be stuff on the ground. And that,
Yeah.
at that point, I pick it up because I don't like an area that I'm responsible for having crap thrown everywhere. So I usually go to the places that I know that every day there's gonna be something there, and I usually pick it all up, and there's more there the next day.
What are your thoughts on a program like that, Mike?
What's that?
If we were to have the outreach areas open for, say, 24 hours a day for 3 or 4 days a week?
Unmanned.
Yep.
Unmanned, and then Cedar Street is open 24 hours.
Yeah, oh, Cedar Street 24/7 then, or,
And then what would Cedar Street be with that option?
again,
We haven't got to that far yet, but Cedar Street, I don't know. No, I was just kind of throwing that option out
Right.
there off the top of my head. I haven't really worked it all the way through,
but something to just talk about.
but Cedar Street gets the bulk of our traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And if you had decent hours, it could be open and closed then. I don't think, if it was 7 days a week, and it was closed and manned, that sees probably, I would say 65% of all traffic for the county goes to that one side. If that had hours of operation and it was better hours than what they have now, I think we wouldn't have near as much feedback. And even if those even if the canisters were only open 24 hours a day, Saturday, Sunday unmanned,
Yeah.
and they had better hours for the workday to where they could, if it was closed altogether with no walk-ins on the outreach and they had to bring it into town, but it was open 7 to 7, I still think you're getting more back and you're reducing spend.
And the thing is that if you have those sites open 4 days, 24/7, and then you have Cedar Street open all the time, man, that's gonna train people to use Cedar Street and the time's coming where
Yeah.
you're gonna have to shut down those remote sites. And I don't, whatever the public thinks is whatever they think, but you're gonna need to shut those sites down, or you're gonna have to jack your fee up again. Because you can't continue to maintain them with the amount of growth that we've got in the silos area, what's going on the east side of the lake, and what's going on in Toston and Raider.
Well, I think-
Eventually, those sites need to shut down.
And I think instead of 4 days on the outreach cans to start with, if you just did the 2 days that they get now, Winston gets a third day, they get Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because they do deal with a much larger volume. And Dry Gulch, Raidersburg, and Toston were just open on the weekends. If it was 24 hours a day, you open the gate up, they're like, somebody at the end of their shift Friday afternoon opens it up, and it's closed again Monday morning, and then those
I
Monday
think
through
that,
Friday,
I
they
think that
still
would be
get.
the most reasonable thing to do.
What's that?
I think that's the most reasonable thing to do. Just give them the days that they're open right now. Give them Saturday and Sunday while you're open.
Yep.
You open it Friday, shut it down Monday. You know, because if they're gonna generate that much more trash, then they're gonna become major issues that like I said, the thing is, you're gonna have to shut those down, and that transfer station's gonna have to get built and open so that we can manage that.
Yep.
And that, I honestly believe that is the long-term goal. That's the 10-year goal, is that, well, and hopefully sooner than 10 years, but is to get a transfer station, and in my preference, at the end of Cedar Street there, where we're not hauling from everywhere around to match the growth rate for the county, because at some point it's gonna become, it's not gonna be feasible to do
Right.
that with the amount of residents that are moving in. But in the duration, you give them the days that they have, but instead of 9 to 3, they have 24-hour access.
Yep.
Then that covers those people that don't like that 9 to 3 hours, that work and are busy and they can't get there. And then for the rest of the time, you got 7 to 7 at Cedar Street.
Well, so I guess, so if the outreach cans are open 24 hours for 2 days, unmanned, is there any point in manning Cedar Street?
At that point, you could have the 5-day-a-week full-time position is going to be there the majority of the time anyways.
Okay.
And, I mean, you have that full-time position right now. So they'd be able to pack, because you're gonna end up still having to pack cans, because the second you stop packing cans, then you're making quite a few more trips up the hill. So I still do think there's benefit, at least having that. And right now, he works Monday through Friday, but our Cedar Street is closed on Monday. You could put him Tuesday through Saturday, and then that way you're packing one of the days during the weekend. There's 4 MSW cans there right now. And that one day, I don't think there would be a huge loss there.
Right, but we have, so all sites be closed on Monday?
No, I think Cedar Street should be open Monday as
Yeah,
well.
Cedar
If-
just
if
not-
we're- If we're doing
Just not
anything,
manned on Monday? Or just part-time guy on Monday?
without, I don't, yeah.
Closed on Monday.
You know, honestly,
Cedar
if we had the one full-time and we had a part-time, that covers Cedar Street all days.
Could one full-time just cover it, say Tuesday to Saturday, and then Cedar Street's closed Sunday, Monday? All the outreach cans are just open Saturday, Sunday, all sites closed on Monday.
Once, I know my workers prefer Cedar Street being closed Monday because they get the big influx
Right.
from the outreach, or from all of our outreach cans. They're dealing with the majority of that, and it gives them
Right,
a
gives them a
day that
day.
they're not having to deal with the bulk on Cedar Street.
I don't see a problem closing Cedar on Monday. All the way
It's
through.
already
Yeah, it's
closed.
already there, they're already used to it.
Yep.
And as a concession, you could leave the walk-in can at Cedar Street to handle Monday's garbage.
Yep.
And then that'll
Nighttime
cover
garbage,
some
yeah.
hours of operation. To me, the outreach cans though, at the far sites, Winston is the only site that it's
No
really
problem.
constantly busy at.
So where does that leave the transfer station hours?
That, if whatever we can save out of here, that gives us the ability to change the hours. So my hook truck and my transfer station drivers, they start early to get to the cans, blah, blah, blah. But if I can shift the hours of my admin who works up there to where, you know, if she typically works 7 hours a day. So if I could do, I don't know, 10 to 5, something like that, then I'm providing a little better service. But once again, it's an employee that I have, and I would hate to mandate something without at least talking to them about it first. But
Right.
that, I do think we need to, especially during the busy season, that site needs to be open on Sunday to handle contractor waste, to handle large volumes of yard waste. I mean, if that's where we're wanting large loads to go, then that one should have some of the better hours of access. And that's the one we really need to control access to, because we have the building there. So if we can make enough gains everywhere else, I would like to spend some of that money to have better hours at the transfer station. Because once again, I do believe that the majority of people will do the right thing if the right option is available to them. I don't think all of them will, but I think I had a person call today that said they had a dump truck full of stuff and they wanted to know what hours it was open and when they can come and if it was okay to go there. And I mean, that's somebody that could easily have pulled up anywhere at one of the outreach sites, and then it's on the attendant to try to direct them. But I think most will do the right thing if it's available.
So with this option, get rid of the walk-in gates, get rid of the pull the 30s?
I do. I think that if we're giving 24-hour access or even larger hours of operation, one way or the other, those walk-in cans would come back to us, and that will help. It will be unpopular. It'll be interesting
Very
because
unpopular.
everybody complains about having to use the walk-in can right about up until the time that you say the walk-in can's
All
gonna
right.
go away.
You didn't like 'em?
That's why I was saying the Cedar Street walk-in can. I think we should keep the Cedar Street walk-in can. That deals with the largest volume of people.
Although,
And
so I guess, so what benefit do you see by closing Cedar Street and not leaving it open 24 hours a day for its 5 or 6 days as well?
just because And for me, it's the largest volume of people, it's got the highest traffic, it's got the highest chance for liability if there's something to go wrong. But it is a valid point. If you're gonna open some 24 hours for X, Y, or Z, then, and I think it's just because it's statistics, it's odds, right? You roll the dice enough times and you're gonna have something bad happen. Well, if the vast majority of people go here and you're moving that much more volume, if it's left to chance that many times, you've got a statistically higher chance of something unfortunate.
Then you go back
There
to
again,
curbs.
I still maintain that liability should be a separate discussion here. Because I still don't see how closing it with the walking gate open reduces our liability that much.
And I don't, if it was open all the time, then once again, if we offer any point in time at a place that it's open and unmanned for a 24-hour period, the walking gate goes away. It doesn't make sense to me at that point. The only reason why they had walk-in cans at any point in time was a concession to the public that was upset about
Convenience.
the use of property.
And it-
With that,
it'd be
went
okay,
in-
but they're abused.
Right. And with that went any of our liability savings.
Because they can still get in.
Yeah, it's kids on bicycles that race off the doggone closed tops. That's what they do.
Really?
Yeah. There's more kids on bicycles up there before we close that thing than you can shake a stick at.
In the dumpsters.
In the dumpsters, on top of the dumpsters, around the dumpsters, hanging from the dumpsters.
It's a free play for it. But
Yeah.
the skateboards we haven't made.
Yeah. And that was our liability concern when I got on this deal, but, you know, we're closing the tops on this thing, closing this thing out. A 24-hour deal at Cedar. Outlying, yeah. There's just too many roving kids here.
But, I mean, walking gate's easy to sneak a bike through, so does being closed with a walking gate open fix anything for us?
Yeah, but they have to get off their bike to walk through the gate.
Yeah, that might be a little tough to get through. We could narrow the gate up. That'll make people happy.
If they were getting in, they would be getting in now,
Right.
and their bikes.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, from right now, it's not a rampant problem with people getting in, even with the access. It's literally three grouped pairs of people that are constantly the issue currently now. It's not like it's 100 people that are
Right.
catching. It is the same group of three pairs that are there. So it is, which is a dramatically lower amount than what used to be when they were open and manned all the time. I mean, there was, heck, my grandpa older, when he was like 70-some years old, tried to crawl in there to get a chair and fell in, and he was a big guy, and I was pretty little. It was, so I mean, it was a rampant problem, and it's not as much now. I mean, it is more restrictive. There are fewer people. The handful of people that we have now, you could put 20-foot tall fence all the way around with retina scanners, and they're still going to figure out how to get in there.
We need to catch them.
Yeah.
We need
So
to hang
then-
them up.
You're back to law enforcement.
And once again, if we catch them enough, and we get them on camera enough, and we cite them with the ordinance enough, eventually.
Now, this
the judge will
option
get tired of
5
seeing 'em.
that we're talking about now, is this still gonna include, camera?
I think no matter what we do, the cameras are the way to go. I mean, the one type, there's two different types of cameras. We have the cameras that mount inside the cans, and those, for us, is a route planning tool for these hours that are, when you're talking about what are we gonna do if the cans are full on the weekends and all this, these cameras that mount in the can, 3 times a day they send you a picture and they tell you the level of how full that can is. So even on the weekend, you get a picture first thing in the morning, tells you the can's 60% full. So then if I have to send somebody out, or I have to go out to close the lid, I can close the lid. Then, I mean, and they scan every article of trash going in there, and you get to set parameters on what you want in the can. People are obviously not what you want in the can, so if somebody climbs in there or falls in there, it will send you an alert, a message right off the bat saying, something violates your parameters. And these cameras are specifically made by a solid waste company for solid waste. They work in the Atlantic Northeast, Vermont, New York, Maine, so they work at cold temperatures. They're lithium-ion batteries. They don't require power. They don't require Wi-Fi. They use cell service. So, and they're $200 a camera, and they carry a $15 a month fee. That's much cheaper than people, and they're proven. I mean, I have not found a single negative review on them from anybody out there.
So I guess, are we all in agreement that the outreach canisters, that, is that something that you could go around, or somebody go around Friday afternoon, open them all, they stay open 24 hours, and then come Monday morning, the hook truck driver closes them down?
If I were to make a suggestion, I would come up with 2 or 3 options that you feel are workable, and option 1 can be one of them, because there is a lot of support for option 1 from the general public. But I think we need to give the commission at least 2 options to say these are the recommendations that the board would feel comfortable supporting.
Well, I'm just looking at these, that seems to be one aspect
Yeah,
that we all seem to be in agreement on.
I think the only way option 5 is going to work if it's open once and closed once.
Yep.
And because if you're trying to open and close every day, the cost goes through the roof.
Yeah.
Opening and closing if it's open Friday afternoon and closed Monday morning, that's something that we could do with the staffing, the full-time staffing that we have.
Well, so if we can agree that that's what we should do with the outreach sites, then the discussion just needs to be, what do we do with Cedar Street and then the transfer station?
Yep. That's it.
Yeah.
I concur.
Okay. So let's put down a plan then. So option 1 is stays the way it is, if we want to give that to the commissioners, okay?
Yep.
Okay, so are we modifying option 2 then,
Or
or just,
let's just
I don't-
start with
I
the
don't
Follow
even see
this
where it fits
option
in there.
5
well,
or option,
you're modifying option 1 then?
our option, I don't,
You just
We're
say
out of
option
office
5.
here. The way we
Option
change it.
5, you can put outreach sites unmanned on the weekends.
yeah.
Yeah, it's close enough.
oh boy.
And then you can figure out then we talk about how we want to do Cedar Street.
I still think we should, the outreach the outreach sites, I would say open more than 2 days. Wouldn't matter if we're leaving them unmanned, whether they're open 3 days or 4 days or.
Winston, I think, if you're for sure, Winston, the volume of traffic they get at Winston, you could go like
We go 3 days.
Thursday through, open it Thursday morning, close it Monday morning. If they do get a significant amount of solid waste through Winston's.
Well, but there again, if we want to try and train people and get people to come to Cedar Street.
I think the reason why Winston is so high is because it gets all of our commuter traffic. The towns and the people who work in Helena. They don't, instead of weaving through town to go to the walk-in can on Cedar Street, they hit the highway, they get past Winston, they whip in there, throw their stuff away, and then they peel out.
So if we want to try and change that habit, that we only have it open for 2
It's
days.
Pretty hard to change habits. Seems like.
It is.
I honestly think just from the volume of walk-in trash they get though, that at a minimum, they should have 3 days at Winston. I'm all in favor for 2 days at the other. The volume of traffic they get is significantly reduced, but Winston's, if we were to take the walk-in can from Winston and only give them 2 days, we would end up with mountains of garbage outside the gate.
Okay. So
You wouldn't be training them, they would
And the
be.
people that live next to that place would not be happy.
No, I would not be happy to have to pick up all that stuff every day. But like I said, at a minimum at Winston, that's something that we've discussed in the solid waste board meetings anyways, is giving Winston more hours, because that is a lot of where in the north half of the county, most of the increased building has been on the flats
Well-
in the Winston area.
So from a volume for us to haul, I see that. But just because there's more people, people's habits in Winston shouldn't be a whole lot different than people's habits in Raidersburg.
Other than you have commuters versus farmers.
But, okay. Yeah.
Do all the other sites have 230s or just Winston?
Do they have what now?
230s there or just Winston?
Just Winston.
Okay.
I mean,
We started out with 20s there, and the 20s were filling up crazy fast, so we put a 30 there. And then 1/3, we were struggling to make it through the weekend to where it was getting even overpacked, or not through the weekend, through the regular work days. So in order for us to not have to visit it every single day, we put a dual 30 out there. Just, that's the volume that we're dealing with, that substantially more than anywhere else.
Right.
Typically, we don't even have to have dual 30s at Cedar Street. I mean, granted, it's open all, at least during the day, 6 days a week, but it is substantially more than all other sites.
So we would do 40s on haul outline.
They would be the 40-yard cans at all of
Okay.
them, and the 30s would come back.
So we're doing away with all the man gates on all the satellite areas? right?
I would.
Okay.
If we're giving, if there's 24-hour access to it, then
And then are we gonna fit in some kind of barrier?
those would have to be closed off. And then there would have to be a barrier to where people aren't, the concrete pylons, or
Okay.
even if you did
Yeah.
safety chain, because there's metal posts on each side of the 40-yard cans, you could put a safety chain across there, just some sort of physical barrier that it
Okay.
doesn't need to be, concrete and rebar all the way, just something to where we're showing that we're providing some extra fall protection to where people aren't gonna accidentally fall in the can. If they choose to crawl in there, then that's on them.
So the way that stands, we've got Toss and Raidersburg and Dry Gulch open 48 hours.
Well, it'd probably be open Thursday day,
Yeah,
closed
it'll end
Monday
up-
morning.
Yeah.
It'll be closer to like 52 or 54.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah, but basically
But
Friday
Winston, we're
night
looking
to
at
Monday
72.
morning. What's that?
Winston, we're looking at 72, 3 days.
Yep, at a minimum, I think that's a good place to start there, to see how full everything gets. It's hard to judge how many 30s that we're pulling out of there and trying to vision that as 40s, but I think 3 days is a good starting point. If we get partway through it and we decide that it needs an extra day, it doesn't cost us anything more at that point. It's just a day earlier that the gates open.
Yep.
So Cedar Street, we'd be looking at the time of 7 to 7, 7 a.m., 7 p.m., closed Monday, open Tuesday through Sunday.
And leave a walk-in gate.
With that one, I think if we're gonna have any closures at Cedar Street, that one, since we do deal with an increased volume of people, I think we'd need the walk-in gate there. I mean, that's 65 to 70% of our volume comes from Cedar Street.
Are we positive it's gonna stay closed at certain times, or
What's
can we
that?
look at the option of leaving it unmanned
And that
24
could
hours
be-
a day?
Well,
That could be an option that we
Right.
give too. That could be
Not
option
necess-
B or option 2, and then option 2B is open and unmanned.
Not necessarily unmanned 24 hours, just open 24
Or
hours
open
and manned during whenever we
Yeah,
get to
I
pack
meant-
trash.
I
Packing
meant
cans or whatever.
Yep,
Yeah, I meant
yeah.
open 24 hours.
And so that brings us down to transfer station hours then.
Yep. I would like, best case scenario, to have it open to the public, something like 10 to 6, Monday through Friday, and 10 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday. Because right now, we're open 10 to 2 on Saturday. You got a 4-hour window on the day that most people are gonna be bringing a large load.
Well, is 6 late enough, or do we need to go 11 to 7? You know, contractor, they get done, they knock out at 5, they get clean, you know, clean up, take the trailer up to the transfer station. They'd be hard pressed to get there by 6.
But if you're there by 6, or if you're there 6, 5 days out of the week, though, I mean, I think that
Is there any reason we couldn't push that back to 11 to 7?
trying to find staffing that'll work 11 to
Okay.
7.
Yep.
But these are gonna have to be variable due to summer and winter.
Yep.
And
And
then
then,
they start it.
Yeah.
during winter time, you could go back to 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and then,
Yep.
I think during the winter time, you can drop Sunday. I've struggled to even try to keep it open Saturday on there. We see, sometimes we get 2 people on a Saturday throughout the winter. And we're paying a worker there to just help, or to allow the opportunity for 2 people to come in. So I think during the weekend, or during the winter hours, you could even say, you could stay 10 to 6 and then drop the weekends altogether, but
I would be in favor of that, right? Because you don't have, right, obviously the contractors aren't gonna be doing a whole lot Saturday.
we don't get ag waste, we don't get yard waste.
Yep,
If
right.
somebody's doing a house demo or remodel is what you may get through.
Right.
there.
But I assume in the summertime, mostly it's gonna be yard work.
Yard work, we get a lot of ag waste, and we get a lot of contract.
On Saturdays,
Yeah.
Sunday.
And you could go up special just for them too, couldn't you, if you get somebody that calls or whatever,
Mhm.
and you could take care of them, or I don't know if that's works for you or
And
somebody.
what-
I say if it would work for you, well, how many days you work, 4 days a week or
I'm 5.
5 days a week, so, but is it possible for you to go up and take care of that too on a weekend in
I
the
could.
winter time?
Yeah, through the winter hours, if somebody needed to get in there, and I'd be willing to go up on the weekend and punch the code in and let them come in and dump and then clean it up. It'd be a half hour either for myself or any one of my employees.
It'd be cheaper that way than
Yep.
keeping somebody on for
The
just
only
for that.
benefit that we have right now out of the Saturday shift is our Saturday attendant is picking one piece of machinery and greasing doing all the greasing and checking fluids, because it's the day that all of our machinery is sitting. And so once a week, a piece of machinery is getting at least the fluids checked and getting greased if needed, and that's it.
There's a lot of value to that.
Since we started doing that, our large-scale maintenance breakdowns and repairs has started to slowly come down, and with the age of our equipment, but there's nothing saying that, somebody couldn't do that. I mean, we're gonna figure out a way to do that no matter what,
But that is.
that is the one day
Yeah.
we're slow during the winter time, and it makes it easy for them to be able to pick a piece of machinery and just give her to once over.
Okay, so what do we have for hours in transfer station? Days and hours?
I would hope, I would like to see 10 to 6 through the work week. And then 10 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday during, daylight savings to daylight savings. That gives you half the year's worth of time that we're dealing with the largest amount of traffic. Or you could even go May 1st to October 1st.
Does it even need to be 10 to 5, or would even noon to 5 work?
Noon to 5 would probably work, but we do get quite a few of our retired community that, when I filled in up there, you get a lot of people that are there right at 10 o'clock when it's busy, and then 11, from about 11:30 to about 1, there's really usually
Yeah.
maybe 1 or 2 stragglers, and then you get the big rush of people trying to get there before it closed.
Yep.
So, but we do have a large amount of our retired community that are early morning people, and they get up there right off the bat. And there are residents up there on Desert Drive that's where they choose to go. They go up there on the weekend to dump their trash.
Yep.
It's the closest place for them.
Okay, we need to run some numbers on those options then?
Okay, so depends on if you're gonna change personnel, that's the biggest change. So I'll just stick with option 5 here to change things. So you, Tanya, Steve, Kelly, and Doug probably gonna stay the same as through the whole thing, so it just depends on how many part-time people you wanna add in here. Right now, I'm taking out all the part-time people. So, that comes up, if you have a 20% increase in tonnage, it comes up at $71,000, for fiscal year 2022.
Sounded like we don't expect to see a 20% increase in tonnage.
But I think playing it safe and going with the 20%, we're not gonna see a decrease no matter what we do, but if we play it safe and say we're expecting 20%, that should be quite a bit more than what we do see. But it's a safe bet. That gives us a good margin of error in there.
20% would give us, right now, in 2020, we were at about 4,350. And a 20% increase would put you at about 5,200 tons. So,
I think that's a pretty safe, it gives us a good margin of error.
and that would be the most we'd ever had. The most we had was 2018, about 5,180 or something like that, I think.
Okay.
And that was a year that we had a lot of shingles coming in, I believe, so.
So like I said, I think that's our safest number to assume. It's the worst case scenario on increase for tonnage, and if we're still seeing a large.
Okay, so if you took, or added one part-time back in there, what wage would you put them back in at?
Probably at the 12.70 long wage, that's what.
Well, we had a 15,000, couple at 16,800, 17,400.
17,400 buys you 24 hours a week.
Okay, so you wanna use one of them?
What's that?
So you wanna use one of them?
Yeah, if you figured that, then that covers you for 24 hours of part-time work per week.
It'd be like a Terry Blanick, is it?
It's actually Kenneth Alexander down there. He's the 6 days, but he covers 6 hours a day, but he covers Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. between
He's about
Austin and
21,000.
Rivers. What's that?
He's about 21,000.
Okay, never mind.
So if we just had the one part-time, would that allow us to run the transfer station on Saturday and monitor Cedar Street from 7 to 7?
It would,
Not
it would
quite.
get you both. So you're looking at 14 hours, or, yeah, you're looking at 24 hours burned up just for the weekend at Cedar Street. So that $121,000, or that $21,000 annual position would cover a weekend at Cedar Street. But if we shift hours for our full-time, and I don't think we have to, once again, we're not really talking about manning it full-time. So if you went Saturday, Sunday, if you had somebody on for 6 hours a day for each day, that's 12 hours.
Yeah.
And then if you figure cost-wise, then that gives you 12 hours of operation to run at Cedars, or at the transfer station, so you could have 6 hours a day, Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah. Well, I don't, what do you think about, I don't think it'd be bad to close Cedar Street Monday either, have all the sites closed Monday.
It's
Yeah.
already
Countywide.
Yeah,
they're
Cedar
all
closed
closed.
Monday.
Yeah.
So I don't see how that's gonna be, you're not taking anything away from them if it's closed Monday
No.
and there's a can there, or walking can there. But if you figure just hours-wise, that covers you for 6 hours of random monitoring through the weekend, that they can go and look at all the sites, and it buys you 6 hours a day on the weekend at the transfer station. So that would drop you down to roughly 50,000 in savings if you added that $21,000 position in there.
Okay, I had put the 17,000 back in, so, but I can take it out and take the
So other thing
$20,000.
you gotta do, John, is you got Josh's medical at 14,000. You don't pay all his medical. You only pay half, or whatever his percentage is.
40%.
You're not paying 14,000 for his medical.
Well, that was the paperwork that I got.
That's what his
That's his
medical
total.
is for the year, for
Right.
all of his departments.
So that's combined by all the 3 departments. The pay that,
Yeah,
what,
yeah.
yeah.
So it should be
So
it's not
split.
all
So
on
that needs to
solid
be
waste.
reduced.
And Tanya's a 50-50 split too, because she's road and solid waste.
I was just going by the paperwork that was given to me.
The total is correct, it's just divided
It has
amongst.
to be divided amongst his department.
Okay.
I guess Tanya's isn't on there anymore.
So just multiply that by 40% roughly.
And Tanya's would be half of hers, right?
Yeah, she's a 50-50 split between roads and solid waste. And what the county might have done, since Tanya's not on here, is listed on here, they might have paid my wage or my benefits more out of solid waste than Tanya's not, so it works out fairly the same
Pass
shape.
that over to Josh and see if
Because
this,
if you
Well, they
look at the
they
sheet,
don't have any
hers
medical
isn't.
here for Tanya.
What's that?
They don't have any medical for Tanya here.
Yeah, and that's what I'm
No,
saying,
they
they
won't.
might, instead of doing two 50-50 splits, they might have just paid one whole person's out of that bucket and not the other person, since they're both on splits.
I can take with that, Josh.
that's what was given to
Yeah.
me. And that, they broke it down 60% and 40% on some of those, and so that's what I was going by.
And I, like Mike was saying, I'm pretty positive that solid waste isn't assuming the full cost of our benefits, because it's 14,000 total for the benefits package.
Isn't it 14,000 just for the medical?
That's what I'm saying, that portion is, that's the full cost of
Yeah.
medical per employee. It was the same when I just looked for, when I picked up the 5th road crew worker, that's the whole cost. I think what Mike's saying is,
You only, of that 14,000, you're only 40% of his charge is solid waste.
Well, that's the paper I gave Josh there. It
Is what
shows it was
Michelle
broke
did.
out, I thought, the way they broke it.
Well, and somebody's Skyping us on premiums, because premium is only 14,000 a year per person.
yeah, it's 14.
So somebody's gotta pay it, but
But it should be,
still.
it should be a split,
Yeah.
just like my wages are split. I think this is just capturing what the total cost of it is. And then up here, it's got my name plus the 40% percentage, and Tanya's at a 60%, I forgot, since she does the majority of solid waste. She's at a 60-40 with the roads, the other 40 of hers is covered through the
Well,
roads.
so yeah, you can split it up. We have nothing listed here for Tanya right
Yeah,
now,
it's
so,
pretty close to a
Yeah.
near shade,
so yeah.
because on yours, you don't have
Okay.
anything.
Put
for
60% of
Tanya.
that on Tanya's and 40 on Josh, and it comes out to the same thing, so,
Okay.
yeah. Just need to switch that around.
So there's no change then.
Not true on that one.
Okay, so. Okay, so if you took, kept Kenneth Alexander in there at 21,000 and left all the, and took all the other part-time ones out, then you're at 29,000, 2022, you're at $29,000, 29,162.26.
Went from 71 to 20 or to 20.
If you took Kenneth Alexander out there, so you just have the one full-time, you're back to 71,000, which doesn't make sense. to me.
Yeah, that Kenneth Alexander doesn't make 50,000 a year. It should be 50,000 is what we're left with, because we're at 71
Why would it
and his
make
wages are
50?
21.
I don't know, it should show the same. 29,162.26. 'cause it just takes us out of here. So it's-
So it pretty much puts us close to 2.97 years to the black. As if we'll have our profit margin fairly similar to the option.
2.57.
A little over 3 years probably.
Everything pretty correct.
So yeah, I think so. It looks like we should, no matter what, we should recommend to the commission that we have increased hours at the transfer station
I agree.
for any option.
Yeah.
That just hopefully gets more waste up there. And then, so I guess I see about 3 options to present to them. Option 1, obviously, we don't like, but I think we should still present it just because there's a lot of people that do like it. So we present option 1, go back completely the way it was. Another option is the outreach sites are just open for 2 days a week, maybe 3 at Winston, and we have Cedar Street open 24/7 unmonitored. Or we have, third option is outreach open for their 2 days or 3 days, and Cedar Street is open 24/7 but monitored during whatever hours we decide. Is that
Yeah.
3 workable options for everybody?
Sums it up.
Any thoughts on that, Mike?
Where are you gonna have Cedar open? 24/7?
Well, no, not 24. Be closed on Monday.
Okay.
So it'd be you saying 6 days a week.
Yep.
And then you would have your full-time employee it wouldn't be manned, but you would have people working there packing cans
Yep.
during their normal business hours. So out of that, there would be somebody there for an 8-hour period, Tuesday through Sunday, and then closed on Monday.
But be open 24.
Yep.
That's what they're saying.
I don't particularly agree with Cedar Street being open 24 hours.
Even though okay.
Just do.
I don't see why we just can't do Cedar 7 to 7.
7 to 7.
That's pretty much
Tuesday.
daylight to dusk, and
Could it be open 24 on the weekends? I guess I don't see much value when with the outreach cans are open for a time for 24 hours. I don't see any reason to close Cedar Street during that time either. Maybe there's benefit by. I guess that doesn't.
Well, but I think the thing is that Cedar Street open 24/7, and the people in town are gonna be in Cedar Street
Oh,
24/7.
just because you've got more
So you've got
population.
more
More
people.
population, more
Okay.
mischief.
A good place to run down and spin brothers and see how far you can jump off the hill. and stuff.
Okay.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Not that I've done that.
That and there's really only 2 places that we have people in the canisters, and that's Cedar Street and Winston. And because that's where we sort trash the most.
Yep.
And the outreach cans, they got 240s. There's no sorting that happens at them. They sort at Winston and they sort at Cedar Street, and that's
Okay.
the 2 places we have people in cans.
So all we need to do is put this down on a piece of paper and then present it.
When you put them down on a piece of paper, make a motion on it to accept it, or to recommend that to the county commissioners.
Yeah.
I do want to point out, wasn't last week, but last time we met, we did say one of the goals was to provide better service, and I don't think the people are going to see this as better service, but it's a plan.
I think by what I hear, the feedback I get, better service is more hours.
Okay,
And that's, I don't get a whole lot of people, actually, I've never had anybody complain that it's open too much. what I hear is that it's too restrictive, they can't get there, that, the only people that I ever hear that really like it the way it is are the people who live immediately around the canister sites. And that's really truly the only people that I've really heard that really like it the way it is.
So that's why I think why we should leave option one on the table, just because, option one's is still what I would prefer the most, but there's a lot of pushback from the commission on that one, obviously.
There are pros and cons to it. It does, I will agree, I hear a lot of community support for that. I do think that, once again, I just want to be careful and remind people that that's the option that got us to the hole in the first place. So, and granted, there were some bad business practices and assessments weren't gradually and raised through the years, so that played into a lot of it, but just keep in mind that's the option that got us in the hole to start with. And like I said, I'm not wholly opposed to it. I just want to make sure everybody is realistic about it, because it's an idealism, right? It's like open and unmanned, you'd think it would cost less, but you do have, that is the highest potential to have more than a 20% increase.
Is there any idea on the cost of putting up the barriers?
Like I said, if you put no more than safety chain across, there's metal posts on either side of the 40s, and throw eye bolts on there, run a chain across there. That way you can get it up at least 3 foot to where if somebody were to trip or fall, there's a physical barrier that may hold them from going in the can. That would be a relatively inexpensive way to provide a little additional protection.
Yeah, I think that's, night's dragging on a little bit, but I think we should put that on our next meeting's agenda, is some sort of barrier or rail or some safety precautions.
In the oil field, we have safety chains on any landing. That way, if you need to access it, you can still, it's easy to unclip, but it is considered by OSHA a fall protection or fall prevention measure. So even in a heavily regulated industry, a safety chain is considered a viable option for fall prevention.
Yeah, as long as it's, 42 inches or higher? Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be our most cost-effective solution.
Yep.
So since this is a working meeting, we can't really,
Can't make
unless
a
we go
motion
into
to
a
vote.
Right.
a vote.
Oh, we'd have to come up with a decision and then put it on the agenda for a decision next meeting.
Everybody's got these figures here. I'll have to figure out where
Yep.
it gets doubled up someplace in here. But if you guys want to work on seeing how you think these options will work out, price-wise, cost-wise,
Okay.
and if everybody comes up with that same thing, then I guess we're on another track, so.
Yep. I think we made a little headway. Do we need to have another working meeting then?
Probably once everybody's gone through the figures.
Yep.
More work to do.
So, we want to try another meeting in 2 weeks, or probably want to get it before you start farming, huh?
Yeah, earlier's better that way, but yeah, 2 weeks probably fine. Thursday at 7 again.
Let's see what we got here. I've got a meeting on the 8th, which would be 2 weeks from now. That's on a Thursday.
Oh, so do I. So that won't work out.
How about the next week? That'd be the 15th. That'd be,
That one, I should be good for that one. That works for me.
I think I'm all right.
anybody else? It's tax day,
The 15th?
April 15th,
Not tax day this year.
isn't it? They moved it back, or moved it.
May 17th or something, I don't know what it was.
Okay, 7 o'clock.
Yep.
Okay. Meeting adjourned.
Okay.
Why is this changing?
You work tomorrow? Well, Corey's on full-time now, isn't
Good night.
he? Back to the regular hours?
Thank you.
Yeah,
See you, Don.
Tuesday through Saturday.
Yeah. I was gonna head over there today and never made it, but what can I say? You know how that goes.
Yeah.